Welcome to I'm a Mom, the podcast. My name is Jenny Pan. This podcast has been in my head for like 2 years, and I have not been able to do anything about it because I have given birth to 2 babies. The first thing I want to talk about is, what is the point of this podcast? Why is this podcast different to any other podcast that I've been or you have been listening to? And I think the thing is, I truly believe more than any other thing that a woman could ever go through, that becoming a mom is the single most transformative experience that a woman could ever go through. Like, I think a lot of moms would agree with me, but it has been so transformative to me. I can barely recognize who I am today compared to who I was before. So I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's the main thing. That is the whole point of this podcast, to really explore all of that transformative stuff that we go through. And it is just so much stuff. It is physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial. I want to really hit those 5 points and go through that in detail because there is just so much in there. And I feel like as a millennial mom, I'm in my mid-30s now, I feel like no one has really prepared us for this. And I wonder whether it's the kind of educational institutions that we've been a part of. I wonder if it's like the feminist movement that has educated us a lot on different things. Was it Barbie? Like, I don't know. I don't really have the answer for it. I wish someone had told me the reality of becoming a mom and all of those changes that we go through. I almost felt like at my baby shower or for my first baby, and when I first got pregnant, a lot of people, all they said was, oh my God, congratulations, it's going to be so wonderful, it's so great, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, girlfriend, why didn't you tell me how hard it was to actually give birth? How come you didn't tell me that you were not going to sleep for a couple of years? Like, no one really told me the harsh realities of becoming a mom. And I didn't really appreciate that. Like, after I had the baby, especially my first, I went through birth trauma because she was basically 9 pounds, and I'm a very small person. Like, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but obviously I'm pretty underweight. I've always been kind of a small person. So I've always been small, and I had a really big baby and I lost a lot of blood, and I don't really know anyone except for maybe like 1 or 2 friends that have had smooth births, and everyone else has had a really hard time. So, man, why didn't you tell me that? And so I want this to be a really honest, really raw podcast about how hard it is becoming a mom, and also the joys of it, the highs and the lows, obviously, but kind of everything that I feel like I wish someone had told me. So this is almost a podcast to myself. It's a podcast to myself and people like me. I wish I was just told the real truth, and in love, not like, oh, this is what you're going to go through, it's going to be so horrible, boo-hoo. Not like that, because, it is a single most transformative experience for a woman, but also it is incredibly fulfilling. It is so many things. And also, I think being a mom sometimes is a bit of a lonely journey. I've felt lonely in a variety of different ways, and I want to talk about that as well. And honestly, I just want to vent and get some stuff off my chest, off my mind. Just as an introduction, who was I pre-mom and who am I now? And it is such a stark difference. I was and I still am a really selfish, really narcissistic person. I grew up as an only child. I don't think that helped at all, but I think, a lot of people, we are selfish human beings, but I think I was more than that. I think I was like extra selfish, extra narcissistic. I was career obsessed. I was an incredibly ambitious person, and I had a lot of big goals in my life, and I really chased after those things. And, my accent might be a little bit confusing to a lot of you watching or listening, but I am Australian. This is my Australian accent that has probably grown weaker over the years because I've been living in the US for about 10 years. And that kind of ties into, how did I get here? And so I, went to school in Australia. I grew up in Australia. Most of my life had been in Australia. And then when I was I was working in the federal Australian government. I was a public servant. I was really happy to do that, but it wasn't enough for me in terms of I did my bachelor's in international studies. So I had always wanted to be out there. I always wanted to be across the waters. I just kind of wanted to explore more. I wanted to see the ocean, not stay in a pond type of thing. So I studied my ass off and I did the GRE exam. I don't know if that's what it's still called now, but that's the exam that you have to do to get into grad school in the US. And I got into Columbia University in New York. It was very expensive. I don't think I regret doing my master's degree in Columbia in New York City just because of the wonderful people that I met. And, I wanted to work at the UN. That was kind of my dream. My top dream was to become a UN diplomat. And if not that, I kind of wanted to be the equivalent of a foreign service officer, an FSO. So I wanted to live this fabulous life. I wanted to be flying everywhere, so busy, just always just flying around and just being I wanted to be like Amal Clooney, okay? The point I'm trying to make is I was a very career-obsessed woman. I wanted to be like Barbie. I wanted to be hot and skinny and successful and rich and traveling everywhere internationally. And, living in New York City kind of gave me a taste of that. And New York City is truly full of very smart, very intelligent, very successful women. Anyway, that was me before. That was pre-mom Jenny. And I had pretty strong political views as well. I was very left, very more erring toward the Democratic, but I am a Christian in my faith. So in some ways, there was a lot of conflict in that too, to be honest with you. And so, I never really dreamt about being a mom. I never had taken care of babies. I was never a baby person. Whenever one of my friends or some of my friends got pregnant and had babies, I never was the person to be like, oh, can I please hold your baby? I never wanted to hold people's babies. I thought infants were weird. They look like aliens. I didn't see cuteness in that at all. And so, I also was very feminist in the way that, and I don't know that this is healthy in any sense of thinking this way, but I guess capitalist America or whatever thinks that women who do not work, women who do not make money, stay-at-home moms, are lazy or are kind of, deadbeats. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, you're just a stay-at-home mom. You're just a stay-at-home mom. And I was exactly that person. Whenever I saw my friends becoming or somebody becoming a stay-at-home mom, I was like, man, what a waste. What a waste of their education. What a waste of their life. Like, wow, you just want to be stuck at home taking care of kids. And in that assumption, there is a lot of falseness of thinking that just taking care of kids is like a really easy thing. That you are lazy, that you're just inside the house, that you are not educated. So a lot of these labels on stay-at-home moms, I stuck onto those people and had all these really negative views about them. And so that was me before. And who am I now? Obviously, I quit my job, meaning I no longer find my job or my career fulfilling to me. And I went through a lot of questioning and a lot of confusion and a mom life crisis about my identity. And I think a lot of moms go through that of who the heck am I now? What do I like? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do in future? Should I be staying home? should I not be staying home? Should I go part-time? Should I stay full-time? Should I change jobs to something more flexible? I really had a million thoughts. Like as soon as, after I had my first baby, I had mom guilt for a really, really long time. And yes, she was actually in daycare for, full-time 9 hours a day for, I guess, almost 2.5 years. And we don't really have help here in terms of like, my parents don't live in the US. They're not accessible that way. My parents in law, they do live in New York, but we have to drive to them. We don't live in New York anymore. We live in Jersey. So many things about me has changed. Let's just put it that way. And this podcast is kind of, sharing that with you and going through, how did those changes happen? Obviously now I have my utmost respect for stay-at-home moms. I honestly, deeply, 100% believe without a doubt that stay-at-home moms have the hardest job in the world, especially stay-at-home moms who have little ones under school age at home with them, especially if they have multiples of that too. And, that's becoming my life now. So I really think it's so hard. Honestly, when I went back to work after having my first, I was like, this is a joke. This is literally a piece of cake. I could do this all day long. I can run circles around the people that I work with, the men that I work with. I can do this all day long. Come on, like bring it. Because taking care of an infant at home who is completely out of my control, who doesn't respect me, who doesn't understand anything, who can't talk, who can't communicate, crying, pooping, peeing, keeping you up at all hours of the night. One night is fine, the next night it's not. Everything is unpredictable, and you are so physically weak after having given birth. And, I had a difficult birthing story and birth trauma that I'll go through later. I was like, this is so easy. Work is so easy. I just sit down at my desk every day. I know exactly what's coming up. It just wasn't hard anymore. It wasn't as hard as I used to think. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that women who are working and don't have kids, I'm not saying that's not hard. It is hard. Everything is hard, especially if you have work with people who are toxic. And I've been through that too, but it's a totally different experience being a mom. And it just is. It's like one of those things, like if you know, you know. If you are a woman versus if you're a man, you just don't experience the same stuff. If you're this race versus another race, it's just different. It just is. We have to accept that truth. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of say like there was a stark difference between me pre-mom and me now. A lot of things have changed. I have matured so much and I continue to, and it's not this one-time transformative experience. I'm continuing to change. I also just want to share one of the biggest things that I struggled with while I was still working full-time and I had my first baby was so much mom guilt. And like, we need to dive deeply into mom guilt. Like, where does that come from? Why do we feel that way? And some people don't, some moms don't. But anyway, I felt that way. I felt that way for many reasons. One, just one day I really thought to myself, okay, Monday through Friday, my daughter is spending 9 hours a day, a little less, a little more, give or take, at daycare. I am missing huge milestones of her like saying something, like her first word, her first step. Did she take her first step at daycare? Did she say something at daycare? Probably. And obviously she had a stronger bond, probably, with the carers at daycare. And yet I'm still her mom. And it did kind of irk me. It did make me feel a little weird that some stranger who I don't know very well, or strangers that I don't know very well, knows my daughter better than I do. They are spending more time with my daughter than me. that can be a hard truth to accept in a sense. And another thing was I heard someone say it, and I'm sure maybe you've heard it before too, but in every title that I have in my life, like, oh, I'm this at my workplace. And by the way, if you're wondering, I worked for a very large private company. It's a huge company. It's global. It's a technology company. So we had offices everywhere in the world. We had meetings at all different times of the day. Whenever we were bidding for a large project, everything was hands-on, all the time. Like, I've been in the office 2 a.m. and that's something that just happens. And, like, New York City works on a different pace, and it was a little crazy at times. And there was a part of me that I think was a little bit workaholic. And I think as a worker, I was a bit of a type A person. Anyway, I digress. I was just trying to say that, someone told me at some point that every title that we have as women can be replaceable by someone else. Like your job. If you get fired or you quit, they're going to replace you with somebody. And they're not you. They're not going to perform exactly like you with your personality and have a work bestie the same as you, but they will get the job done. It is replaceable. But the title of mom, me being a mom to my specific 2 daughters that I gave birth to, nobody else can replace me. I'm their only mom. And so that kind of hit me in a really heavy way, because I knew it was true. I knew that, as much as I wanted to convince myself sometimes, or you really think that you're special in the workplace, like, the most special person salary-wise in the workplace is a CEO. They get replaced all the time. They get replaced with people who are better than them or meant to be better than them to improve the company. So really, who is that person the most important to? Or who is that person an unchanging person for? And the answer is always family. And so that has been a big kind of one of the big realizations for me as I made the choice, and the choice to become a stay-at-home mom, or the choice to pull back from my career, which took a really long time. It was not a overnight decision of like, oh, I've always wanted this. No, I didn't. In the beginning, I was like, oh my God, like going back to work after my first was like the easiest thing in the world for me. And I got myself back a little bit, and physically I bounced back a little more because it is less laborious physically. I just sit down and I type. Like, that's what I did. And so it didn't hit me like that in the beginning. It really was a slow burning process of like the mom guilt and just rethinking things and reprioritizing things, and things that happened in my workplace that weren't that great, that kind of led me to this decision. But, one of the biggest things is, what was an aha moment for me in realizing that I just couldn't keep doing the everything anymore. Like I couldn't work 9 hours a day and also be a good mom. I think I was lying to myself to think that I could do everything all the time. And I think with maybe 1 kid, it is a little bit more manageable, but with 2, I just didn't want to have 2 of my girls in daycare for 9 hours a day. And so, I really do believe that when people say, oh, lean in, you can do everything, women can do everything. I believe that we can do everything. We freaking gave birth to a baby through our own bodies and feed them with our own bodies, and we do wonderful things. We multitask. We're so intelligent, so smart. But it's true also to say that you can't do everything all at once in an excellent way. Like, who am I kidding? Like, I had my kid in daycare for 9 hours, and most of my time was spent at work. I only had 2 to 3 hours to give to my kid, and that wasn't the best of me. I was already tired at the end of the day. I was already done. I wanted to check out. I was just rushing to make dinner, rushing from one thing to another. Then, that night was just packing her bag for the next day, doing laundry and taking a shower, and then going on my phone, scrolling, just dead scrolling, or watching a movie. And it just, in my perspective, was not fulfilling for me, and it wasn't sustainable for me. The money was great, don't get me wrong, it was really great, and financially it is such a huge change from working all the time to not working at all. It's pretty substantial. So going back to this aha moment, when did my kind of dream, my career of being like fabulous, flying around, doing so many things and working for the UN, like that kind of broke for me at this event. So I think it was 2023, or maybe it was 2024. Honestly, I don't remember, but I'm going to put up a photo. I will share it, where it was a gala. It was a corporate gala. Our company was one of the major sponsors of the event. It was held in New York City, Midtown. Beautiful location, super fancy. Like they were giving us like 3 or 4 course meals. The food was great. And all the who's who of the transportation industry was there. And there was this special table, and it was only for the CEOs or the presidents of all the companies and the major sponsors of the event. And our CEO was sitting there, and he's a really nice guy. I don't know him very well. I wasn't that high up. I was a manager, but I wasn't like VP, SVP level at our company. So I didn't brush shoulders with the C-suite all the time. So, we had our own office table, and the CEO table wasn't that far away. And his life from everyone else's perspective, all these CEOs, very fancy, they always wear nice stuff, that they've got, their salary is in the millions, right? And they just have this fabulous life. And a lot of people, all of us, are told that that's what you should go for. That's the life that you want, especially on this, salary W-2. Everyone wants to be, or most people want to be, in that C-suite if you're an ambitious young person. And that was me. I was like, why can't I be that? I want to keep running up this corporate ladder and becoming, higher salary, more power, more decision making. What else was I going to do? Like, that was the path. And I looked over at him at this table, and everyone at that table looked like they absolutely hated being there. It was like 9 p.m. at night on a weekday. Of course they would rather be home with their families. Are you kidding me? Like, especially our CEO, he has a pretty big family, and he's known to be a family guy. He really, when he introduced himself, talked about his 4 kids. And I'm just like watching, and they look miserable. They look so lonely, so miserable. And, this guy has been flying around to like 4 different countries in the last 2 weeks or more, and doing all this stuff and just working around the clock. Like, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want that life. I don't know if I want to be flying around all the time, never seeing my family, never sleeping properly, always on the run. Just, yeah, like everywhere, but never really somewhere you truly want to be, not able to relax, and just away from family. Another one of my friends, when I asked her, like, hey, I'm scared that I will become irrelevant when I stop working. Like, will I be able to work again? Will someone hire me again? Like, what was the point of me going to Columbia University? Like, we spent so much money on that, and And what now? And she said something that I will never forget. She said, someone told her once that a lot of people on their deathbed will not say, oh, I wish I spent more time working. I wish I spent more time making more money. Most people say, I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I loved my wife or my husband more or better. And I don't know, I'm kind of like, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm still young. I have my whole life ahead of me in terms of career. But it's just not, it wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. And this is such a, maybe it's a bit of a privileged thing to say. I think that in this day and age, it is a flex for someone to be able to quit their job, especially living in the Northeast, and saying, I'm going to just become a stay-at-home mom. I get it. It's not easy. And there are sacrifices to be made on both sides. And, that gala really opened my eyes. I was able to look at everyone, and especially that CEO table, and just, CEOs, VPs, SVPs, people who have climbed the corporate ladder and got near the top, they are working all the time. And I think it's a real exception if you have a high title and you're chilling. I think that's rare. I have this strong belief that money doesn't come easily. I think money is something that you have to work for and you have to work hard for. And if it wasn't you, someone else did. If you came from a household full of money, somebody along that generation, your great-grandpa, your great-grandma, whoever, somebody was hustling. Anyway, I've been digressing a lot. But basically, the whole point of this episode was just to say, what is the point of my podcast? And the point is, becoming a mom is truly, I believe strongly, the single most transformative experience that any woman could ever go through. It is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially a massive game changer, with pros and cons all around. And I just didn't feel prepared for it at all. And I don't think that you have to be prepared to become a mom. I just was a very selfish, very narcissistic person, very immature person who never really dreamed of becoming a mom. Yes, I wanted kids, but I didn't really, oh my God, I really love babies. I really want a kid. I just wanted kids because I thought that was part of life, because everyone else had kids and it just seemed to be the norm. But I think that pre-baby, ask Jenny Pan pre-baby, would you be devastated if you never had kids? And my answer would probably be like, no. Yeah, I'll just keep running up the corporate ladder, do more, try to figure out how to make more money and live that great, fabulous life. That probably could have been my answer. But I've become this self-unrecognizable person now, sitting here telling you that I have now decided to become a stay-at-home mom, and I've quit my job 2 months ago. What happened to Columbia University? What happened to these different belief systems in my mind? A lot. And that is what this podcast is all about. I want to go through that. And I think that a lot of women who've especially been working or still are working can relate to that. And I looked at a lot of podcasts, and I don't think I really look like your typical podcast mom. I'm not blonde. I don't have blue eyes. I'm not Mormon. I don't have 5 kids, so maybe I'm a little bit more relatable to some people. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being rude, and maybe what I just said is going to offend a lot of people, but I just kind of don't care anymore. I'm just going to do and say what I want to say because this is my podcast. So, welcome.